First is the idea that there are other planes, other universes, existing at the micro level within our own universe. If we zoom in on a particular molecule, we can go close enough to see the atoms that make it up, with scientists once believing that that was it. Atoms were the smallest possible parts of nature. We now know that if we go further, we see the nucleus of that atom. Further still for the neutrons and protons that make up that nucleus. Here again was one time accepted as the end, the smallest we could possibly get. But we're now well aware that those neutrons and protons are also formed by other, smaller pieces, quarks held together by gluons. Thanks to relatively recent experiments, we also know that if you try to separate two quarks from each other, the energy it takes to do so can birth completely new quarks in the process, leading some to see the quantum level as limitless. Which brings us to the microverse theory, a kind of mirror image to the regular multiverse theory, which says that if you were to somehow reduce your own size infinitely, you'd eventually find yourself inside of an entire universe inside of an atom. The rule could hold true for every atom too, meaning that there are near infinite universes thriving at the micro level. Nowadays, it's a go-to theme for modern sci-fi and pop culture, featuring in the Marvel comics and on shows like Rick and Morty, where whole galaxies, planets, and perhaps even living beings could all exist within a particle. Thinking the other way, there's even the possibility that we ourselves exist inside what's little more than a single particle inside someone else's much larger universe. The microverse works twofold. You can go either up and up, expanding outwards, or down and down, reverting inwards. For some, it's absurd, and the idea definitely is hypothetical. But while it may seem impossible that so much matter could fit inside such a small point, consider that the universe isn't what it seems. All of the visible matter we can see only accounts for around 4% of our total universe. Atoms have a similar makeup. They're 99.9% empty space. Electrons exist in a cloud around the nucleus, which is around 100,000 times smaller than the atom itself. But in the space in between, there seems to be complete nothingness. To look at it another way, if we were able to push the matter that makes up your body so close together so as to eliminate that empty space, we'd each be compressed down into the size of a tiny speck of dust. So what if we did something similar for an entire universe? Everything condensed to the size of a single atom? Well, conventional physics says that we'd probably get a black hole, as the smallest possible thing in the universe is thought to be the singularity at the center of a black hole, a place so dense that it bends space-time infinitely to a smaller and smaller point. According to the microverse theory, though, such inconceivable processes could be happening all over the place all of the time. And given that it's also theorized that when black holes collapse, they're able to birth whole new universes, this too is theoretically happening all across reality at any available second. In one relatively traditional, though still totally hypothetical idea, it's argued that our own Big Bang creation of the universe could have been the result of a higher dimensional star collapsing into a black hole. That's one theory for how everything we've ever known came into being, but the microverse says that similar spectacular creations might be happening all of the time, just on a much smaller scale. At the very least, they could be happening inside of other black holes that we know about. Of course, none of this is proven, and if we ever did prove it, then it'd signal a major shift in how we think of and appreciate the experience of life. As we've already found at the quantum level, widely accepted laws of physics can be completely thrown out. There's no saying that any microverse universe should look or behave even comparatively close to our own. But if there are infinite variations, then there are also microverse setups that we would recognize. A strange aspect of modern science is that classical mechanics perfectly explains everything we can see about the world, as long as we don't go too large or too small. When you go too big, you need general relativity to work things out. When you go too small, you need quantum mechanics. The rules of the game can change in either direction, and maybe continue to change the further out or in you go. While we could well be part of something much larger, we could also be part of something much smaller. Clearly, there are some major question marks surrounding the microverse theory. For one, wouldn't we just know about it? If everything we knew is made up of endless other clumps of endless matter, wouldn't we be able to detect the mass or see the black holes? Maybe not when we consider the Higgs boson, or what some term the God particle. The Higgs boson shocked the scientific community when it was discovered, because it proves the Higgs field, a fundamental concept which is somehow able to give particles mass when they pass through it. It's even been suggested that a Higgs field is what ultimately gave our own universe its mass, but before it passed through the field, it was nothing. On a micro level, waiting for an incredibly far-out moment of revelation, other universes, or potential universes, could exist inside of the atoms of our own. but with no detectable mass from our perspective because they don't interact with anything like the Higgs boson or the Higgs field. This variation pitches the microverse as though it's an untapped source, laying dormant because that's the way reality panned out. But regardless of how it's structured, there is a totally different world down there at the subatomic level. A place wholly unknowable to human eyes, with completely different rules, but also some striking similarities with the universe as we know it. More than that, though, if you stretch the theory far enough, then everything that we know could also be a subatomic speck of nothingness on the fingertips of another, higher power. It's all a matter of perspective, but that's how